Hey, it's Becky. I have a time machine and I am so excited to share it with you. Let me get it all set up and ready. I am, dun, dun, dun. So let me do this and then let me go here. Okay, I'm so excited. There have been people that have asked me, what was it like to homeschool over the last 25 years? And I was just digging through pictures and I can show you what it was like to homeschool over the last 25 years. We're getting ready to launch our Homeschooling Olympians Sunday. And what my heart is beating so fast because I want people to understand that it is possible to break free from curriculum and to experience freedom in homeschool, freedom in living life right alongside with your family. And it is possible to raise up kids that are amazingly educated at the same time. So, without further ado, I want to talk to you about what it looks like to homeschool. And there's a bunch of different things in here, but I want you to see this. This is my husband and I, and four of our sons. The girl in the middle next to me is now my daughter in law. And this is the most current picture of our family, where it is all five of our sons and two of our daughter in laws. And everybody's smiling. Everybody loves each other. It has not always been easy, but we are so blessed with the life that we've been able to live. And I'm super excited as we get ready to launch Homeschooling Olympians. There's a link in the description so that you can join me on Sunday or even catch the replay. But drop your name in there so that you can get all the details. But I want to talk to you about these two people. So I met Craig a million years ago. It was 1989, and I took my first day off in history with a friend that was going on what's called a tiger cruise. And her dad was in the military, he was in the Navy, and she did not want to go on this ship for the day because it was a tiger cruise is the day that the Navy allows family and friends to go on a day cruise to be able to see what their people do in action. Well, I met my husband on that day, and that began our journey that's now led us down the road in homeschool. And so when we first got pregnant and we talked about how we wanted to educate our kids, we had all kinds of dreams of things that we wanted to actually do. And it wasn't until our oldest was probably in kindergarten that Craig said, Becky, I want us to homeschool our kids. And I've told this story before because I was like, no, because I don't want our kids to be weird, but they were destined to be weird because they were ours. But anyway, long story short, these pictures are going to come at you not necessarily in order, but I want you to catch a glimpse of what's possible when you lean into family, you lean into heart and character, and you set your foundations in homeschool properly. So our youngest three boys, we call them Musketeers. This is a very classic Isaac, Stephen, and Sam picture. Sam is super sweet. Stephen is super smoldery, and Isaac loves to make you laugh by not looking at the camera. I want you to know that homeschool for us was super messy, kind of like eating pink cake with your fingers. There were days that we cried, days that we fought, days that the kids fought and cried. There were days that were filled with laughter and joy. It's kind of this whole thing. And when you put homeschooling in perspective, when I look through the last 25 years, what kinds of things did we do? We're going to look through the lens of some of these things. But the main thing that we did was that we prioritized family. And as I go back through the pictures and I'm looking at the trail of what we did as homeschoolers, I see this wealth of memory bank of spending time with all of our kids. These are current pictures. A few years ago, my husband took the boys salmon fishing. We've spent a lot of time on the sidelines for Stephen in rowing, but all the way back through our album, I see these pictures of our family together. And one thing that I want to point out, if you're married and you are homeschooling together with your spouse, I need you to understand that no matter who is the teacher, the other person is intricately needed. Homeschool, although I always held the red pencil and I stood at the whiteboard and I did the lessons and I taught the kids how to read and write and all those things, homeschool would not have been possible without my husband, Craig. He is the visionary for everything that we've ever done in homeschool. He's the one that made sure that we focused on master goals and character and attitude. And oh my goodness, has he been just integral. And when people meet us and they meet our kids now, they'll say to me, "What a great job I did." But I need you to know it's what a great job we did. When I look back through our bank of pictures, there's so much rowing because rowing has been a big part of our life since I think it was 2018. All of the Three Musketeers rowed together, and it was Stephen that took off with rowing even beyond. But it wasn't just rowing. We played hard as a family. And there's this trail of our monkey boy, who was Stephen, who was just, we were lucky to keep him alive. But there were lots of game nights. We took advantage of when it rained. We went outside and we splashed in puddles. We did things together as a family. We worked together to keep Stephen alive, which is kind of a standing joke. He's 12 years younger than his older brother, his oldest brother. And so when I would be busy teaching school, Stephen would get into stuff. And you can just see in this picture that this kid was on a mission. Oh my goodness, was he mischievous. And he's now grown. He's 18 and he's rowing down at the University of San Diego. He someday, this is when he found out that he was recruited to row for their crew. He is on an Olympic path and is super excited to someday potentially row in the Olympics. And he has his eyes set on the 2032 Olympics. But this isn't all about Stephen. As a family, we explored things together. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about what it looks like to homeschool over 25 years. And so far, I want you to see that I've shown you very little curriculum. I've shown you very little schoolwork. And I believe that this is key because when I look back at all of these pictures, what I see is family. What I see is investing into the hearts and minds of our kids from a grounding space, not from an academic space. I can tell you now that all the boys are 18 and older. They all read, they write, they can do their basic math. They're excellent communicators. But this did not come being chained to our kitchen table. This came as we explored life together. And so we were out, we took advantage of opportunities. There was a season in life that we were involved in a charter school, and two of the kids were able to go on this sailing expedition and study marine biology. One year we went into the sequoias and we were able to stand right next to the General Sherman tree. Now, this is important because this is us next to the General Sherman. But in the spring, we didn't know this. This was our first time there. We took pictures. We went back after the snow melted. And it turns out that this tree is protected by a fence and you cannot get anywhere near it. In this tree, we're actually standing on 10 to 15 feet of snow. But we were out there exploring in the woods. We spent a lot of time in the car and we were just traveling all the time. I did not grow up this way. I actually used to panic in the car if I was strapped in my seat for more than an hour because my family growing up spent most of our life in our yard, in our community, hanging out. Versus my husband was, his dad was an executive with Delta Airlines and they traveled all the time and they loved to get in the car. It took me years to be able to enjoy that part of the journey, but we have spent just days, weeks, months, and years in the car. It was fantastic. We did focus on the basics, but we didn't do it in a traditional sense. Yes, we did use some curriculum. Yes, the boys did do schoolwork, but we were more likely to be found outside drawing with sidewalk chalk. This is one time we were doing a study on oh, I think it was whales and penguins and such. So we went outside and we had the boys draw a whale that was to scale. And so that's one of the kids laying down, and then you could see they could walk the length of the whale and just marvel at how big it was. We gave the kids time to lean into their passions. This is our second son, Micah, and he was taking a drawing class at the time, and he had learned about grid drawing. And so he was in the process of just transferring this drawing, and so leaning into talents and things that the kids were really interested in. Oh, another slide that says learn the basics. There's again lots of time spent with dad, lots of time spent with mom, lots of time spent as a family. My husband was really big on doing hobbies that the kids loved or that he loved to do, and then he would pull us in. So he took a couple of the boys pheasant hunting. He actually had set a rule for a period of time that the boys were required to play chess every single day, and they did for years. And the reason was he wanted them to be critical thinkers and to be able to think many steps down the road. So he taught them how to play chess, and then they played chess every single day. We went on trips to different places. This is the one where Craig and I are standing in front of a shipwreck. We had gone to a part of the Lewis and Clark Trail and followed their path and got to explore some of the things that they were able to explore. We took the kids clamming. Dress up was a big part of our homeschool journey. We were very likely to be found wearing something that was not standard clothing. If it wasn't pajamas, a lot of times, especially the younger kids, were in some sort of costume. My kitchen table always looked like this, but you could just mix up whatever the materials were. My kitchen table was a mess for decades. It had books and papers and pencils and things, projects that were half done, because I had so many ages and stages that I would just leave it there and we would come back to it later. There was so much reading and a little bit of school, but so much reading in the house. The boys would read by themselves, they would read to each other, we would listen to audiobooks. Again, the chess, which was super important. This is a fun season. There's two pictures here of Stephen. There are other pictures, I just couldn't find them. Whenever given the opportunity, we would teach the kids whatever we were doing. So I was working on a quilt, and Stephen happened to have a bag that had a hole in it. So he asked if he could use my sewing machine to fix his belt, which he did. This picture over here on the right was we were reading a story that talked about a boy that lost his sight. And so one of the activities that we did was I blindfolded Stephen, and then I had him go around the house and do certain things. Find his shoes, go in the refrigerator and get a carrot. He was just about to go outside and check the mail. And funny story, as we get out to the mailbox, the neighbor's barky dog came barking up to him. And Stephen had got to experience what it would be like to be blind, but to be startled by something and not quite to know what to do. And it was a huge learning experience for him. We spent lots of time playing. These are big kids. My kids still play. They play hard. They play sword fights, they play ninja, they do archery, they do all kinds of stuff. And they're just not afraid to let that little kid come out in them. Um, Again, we did do some paperwork, but you would also find us doing things that were not age appropriate. So if the park was clear, the kids were on the swings. This is a picture of Sam. I think it was last year or the year before. We made paper countdown chains for Christmas. And he reminded me that nobody is ever too old to do something like paper airplane chains. Again, lots of playing, lots of Nerf, lots of Nerf. In a house full of boys, there were Nerf wars all the time. That's a picture on the right of Stephen, a part of his haul during COVID. He leaned into crochet during the serious lockdown part, and he made hundreds of little crochet things. Lots of playing with our dog Sprocket, lots of time in the car as a family. The kids grew up in this zone of being loved and appreciated and connected. They're quirky and wonderful in their own unique ways. Sam has grown up to be a mathematician and scientist, still working towards his bachelor's degree, but again, just has this delight for being silly. He's also our quietest one, which when he brings his silly out, it's extra funny because he's usually so quiet. Isaac is our musician. He's currently working towards being a worship pastor, and he is in Florida at this time. And he tends to be silent unless he knows he can make you laugh. This is kind of what happens when you let your son take pictures of your other son for graduation. So I don't have pictures of all the kids in the different stages of their education necessarily. There was a season that all of my pictures were lost when my computer died. But when Sam graduated with his Associates of Science degree at the same time that he earned his high school diploma, Isaac came and helped me take pictures. And so the picture on the left is, oh, dude, stand by the trash can and pretend you're like, hey, doing an infomercial for being a trash man. So, but Sam loves math and science, so he was thrilled to stand by the pi symbol. But we, again, did lots of stuff together. We just sought education differently. We followed curiosity and we leaned into just hanging out as a family. And when you look at this, you might think, wow, my family doesn't laugh. My family doesn't hang out together. My family doesn't have fun. And I want you to know that for every one picture that you see online where everything looks picture perfect, there's probably 7 pictures of that same family where things aren't picture perfect. So just know that life is hard for everybody, but it's a choice with how you lean into educating your kids. Stick together as a unit. Do things where your kids see you if you're married as husband and wife, and work together to be connected in a way that they can see that. Hang out together as a family, be goofy and silly, do things as competitions. We had a gingerbread house competition last year or the year before, and the kids, even though they're big and bearded, they still have a really great time. There was a season in life where I looked out my window and I saw that all of my boys and my husband were in the backyard and they were shooting archery. And I realized if I didn't become an archer, I was going to miss out on opportunities. So that's me in the middle with a bow. And we do 3-dimensional target shooting as a family. It's super fun. Again, we spent a lot of time playing games, a lot of time playing in the rain. And now, as the kids are older, we get to celebrate different seasons of life together as they get engaged and they get married. It's just been this wonderful season of growth as a family. Again, we kicked off birthday competitions this year because all 5 of our sons are spreading out all over the planet. We've got one in Florida, one in Idaho, one in San Diego, one in Colorado, and Sam is still at home. And so how can you unify as a family when everybody is only close enough to text? Well, we do family competitions. And so the birthday person posts a birthday competition, and then everybody is required to complete the competition within 24 hours. And it started this is the first one. This was my birthday in January, where my thing was everybody has to have a piece of cake on me or celebrate with cake, and it has to be, you have to prove it by being on film. And so the kids, happy birthday, mom. And it has turned into this crazy, if it's crazy Sailor celebration. The kids have grown to be confident, they're kind, they're quirky. Even though we don't believe that college is for everyone, 4 of our kids have gotten at least their associate's degree. And one of them, Micah, has his bachelor's degree. And then Isaac and Sam are working on and Stephen are working toward their bachelor's degree. And although I always say big deal, so what? For us, that made sense, right? We homeschooled in every way possible that you can think of. We were quirky. I'm that teacher that does weird things and likes to pause to delight in whatever is going on in the moment. And we captured the essence of the joy of homeschool, even though like this like little collage of Stephen shows you that he was a handful as a child. So here I'm homeschooling and mentoring older kids while trying to keep this kid out of trouble. It was quite an adventure, but we had a ball along the way. This is one of the first times we hiked up a mountain together as a group, and the kids, you can see, just kept us hopping. So that's kind of a glimpse. I don't have pictures that go all the way back through our homeschooling journey, but you can see that there's not a lot of schoolwork. There's not that we read a lot. We would ask questions and then we would look at the answers to the questions together. We pursued things as a family. And that I really owe that to my husband. My husband was really, really family centric. He did not spend a lot of time doing hobbies away from home. Constantly, if there is a day off, he's saying, what are we going to do as a family? And he was looking for adventure and how we could get in a car and where could we go and where could we explore. We sought education by looking at things that we were going to see, and then we would learn more about them. We laughed a lot. We would skip school every single time in order to concentrate on attitudes or character. And sometimes that meant that a week would go by and we would do very little academically. But we continued to focus on the basics. We continued to work together. And over time, this is what's morphed into this homeschooling Olympians way of educating, where you focus on the heart of your kids and you filter everything that you do through the lens of your master homeschool goals. Our goals never shifted once they were established. It was to share our faith with our kids in everything that we do, that they would master their basic math facts, that they would be marinated in excellent literature, and that they would become excellent communicators. And all 5 of them have gone on to be and do just that. So I thought that that would be fun just to kind of look through and see what it looks like to look back at the Sayler journey of homeschooling 5 kids. And we went through the whole cycle. I was against homeschooling at the beginning because I didn't feel qualified. I thought homeschoolers were weird, and I just didn't have the confidence that I was going to be able to educate the kids because I was so outnumbered. And there's just no way that you could teach 8th grade well and kindergarten well, right? So I started there and then tripped on over myself many times over things like, am I doing enough? Are we doing enough school? Are we getting anything accomplished? A lot of self-doubt, a lot of worry. And then we tried all the different styles of homeschool that you could do. So again, I feel like the farmer's commercial. I know a few things because I've seen a few things. And I've been blessed to have seen so many different things. I've seen what public school in a box at home looks like. I've seen what charter schools look like and co-op schools, what it looks like to swap curriculum with friends, to buy a boxed curriculum, to write your own curriculum, to do no curriculum. I've seen it all. So I feel like I'm in this very unique position where I can breathe encouragement into almost any homeschool situation because I can relate to all the different ways that people educate their kids. But my mission never changes. The mission is to break the chains of curriculum and set people free one family at a time. Because the reality is, when people dream about homeschool, they dream about spending time with their family and hanging out and having joy and having fellowship and communion. They think about playing games and learning math and critical thinking in an unconventional way. They think about doing things like developing fine motor skills, but they want to use sidewalk chalk and not just pencil and paper. They want to go dance in the rain, and they, at the end of the journey, they want to still be connected as a family and to be able to celebrate life together. And that's what is possible if you can break free of curriculum and you can stop looking at your kids through the lens of, well, what does a baby need in a day? Well, you know what a baby needs in a day. They need love and they need nutrition and they need rest. And when you look at your older kids, they're no different. They need love, they need nutrition, they need rest, and then they need targeted opportunities based on whatever stage of homeschool that they're in and development that they're in and life. And at the end of the day, if all you have is a memory book filled with wonderful memories of your family and this much academic trail that you've left behind, then I can tell you with 100% certainty that you will have lived a very rich life and that your kids will have an unfair advantage in this life because they'll be confident, they'll be kind, they will have fallen in love with lifelong learning because for them, learning won't mean a textbook. Learning will mean something like visiting the General Sherman tree and learning about the sequoias, or going to the redwoods and learning about how much water those trees breathe in or take in through their needles and their branches, and the fact that they need fire to go through in order to release their pine cones or their seeds in order for them to reproduce. Or they will understand how long of a journey it was for Lewis and Clark because they will have put their feet on some of the same places. Does it take sacrifice? Absolutely. It takes time and effort and a lot of just letting go of expectation, letting go of curriculum, letting go of the fear that if you lean into your family and you concentrate on character and heart and all those things, that your kids aren't going to be behind. They're not. Now, we don't neglect academics. We teach them their basic math facts. We teach them to fall in love with learning. We teach them to be excellent communicators on paper. So that means they'll learn how to write. And orally, that means they'll learn how to speak. And they'll do those things through the lens of what is the purpose of what they're doing? Who is it for? Who's the audience? And is there any specialized language that they need to know in order to communicate? Because I think you can see, and I bet you're nodding, that wow, if I check off those boxes, my kids rocking it. They're readers, which means they're learning and they know how to get information, but they also are gleaning vocabulary necessary in order to articulate to a particular crowd or to write a particular piece for a particular purpose. They don't end up filled with a bunch of trivia and a bunch of crazy things, but instead they have the skills that allow them to do anything that they set their heart and mind and soul on. And they learn the most precious piece of advice that older kids can learn is that they can be expert help seekers. So if they're avid readers, if they are excellent at communication and they know that, man, if I get stuck, if I get challenged, if I don't know what I'm supposed to do, if I can just find somebody that is an expert in that field and then ask them questions, they're going to be like a waterfall because if you ask somebody a question about their sweet spot, that they don't hold anything back. And so that's one of the special things that we can give our kids as homeschoolers is that they can learn from people that have gone before them. So anyway, that is kind of a glance through the time machine of the Sailors. It has been and is continuing to be just this amazing journey to raise up 5 kids, to be married to a man that prioritizes family and integrity and character, stands on the word of truth, and then looks through homeschool as not a bunch of things to check off at the end of the day, but a way to train up our kids so that when they're released, they thrive. So anyway, that's it. If I hope that you have made it onto the list so that you'll be joining me on Sunday as we talk about homeschooling Olympians some more. And I think that's it. Let me know what you think. I'll talk to you later. Bye.